Good evening, Assalamu alaikum rahmatullahi wa barakatuh, and welcome to News in Focus. My name is Faraz Patel. First day of September, and of course, spring has kicked in. But this week is going to be dominated by none other than the Global Summud Flotilla. It's all the talk ahead of this week, and there are 9 South Africans that will be joining this massive effort that's going to go ahead to try and break Israel's illegal siege of Gaza. Of course, we know that there is a man-made policy of starvation that is currently happening in Gaza. An invasion of Gaza City is imminent. But these brave souls are going to try to go ahead and get that necessary aid through the port of Gaza. And one of them, of the South African delegation, is Dr. Fatima Hendricks. She's also part of the healthcare workers for Palestine, and she will be conducting this journey along with many other South Africans and the global citizens across the world. Dr. Hendricks, Assalamu alaikum rahmatullahi wa barakatuh, and shukran so much for joining us.
Wa alaikum salam wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh to you and all of the viewers around the world.
No, it's an absolute pleasure. And Dr. Hendricks is coming to us from Tunis in Tunisia. Dr. Hendricks, I guess not everyone's been living under a rock, but for those who have been under a rock for these few days, talk to us about what this Global Summud Flotilla is.
Well, the Global Summud Flotilla is a coordinated, non-violent fleet of mostly small vessels that are going to be sailing from different ports around the world. The first fleet has left from Barcelona in Spain, and we are about to depart from Tunisia in the forthcoming days. There will also be a fleet that's coming from Greece and from Italy, and the point of this is to break the occupying powers' illegal siege of Gaza, and it is really about a non-violent direct action campaign. We don't carry any weapons, we carry only aid. Our goals are to break the siege, deliver urgent humanitarian aid, and establish a people's humanitarian sea corridor to the shores of Gaza.
Dr. Hendricks, who is it made out of? Of course, yesterday we saw 2 prominent individuals, Susan Sarandon, Hollywood actress, and of course Greta Thunberg. She's going to be conducting her second journey after, of course, being part of the Madeleine. But talk to us about, from a global level, who is it made out of, besides, of course, the 9 South Africans that are going?
10 South Africans.
Oh, 10
yes.
South Africans. Okay, shukran for that, for clarifying it.
Okay.
No.
So I think at a global level, we really have to look at the coalitions that are involved. There is the global movement to Gaza, which we would have been familiar with in terms of the formerly being called the Global March to Gaza. Then there's the Freedom Flotilla coalition, and those are the flotillas that were previously sent, like the Handala, the Madeleine. And then we have a North African Maghreb Sumud Flotilla and the Sumud Nusantara, making up the largest coordinated civilian flotilla in history.
Dr. Hendricks, the objectives, I guess everyone knows what the objectives are. It's quite frankly to get the aid into Gaza. But other than that, what are the objectives given what we are witnessing, the scale of this genocide that is in Gaza?
Right. So I do also want to add that the mobilization for these flotillas began way back in 2006. I mean, this is a few decades long siege of Gaza that has been inflicted on the Palestinian people in Gaza. And we're all familiar with what happened in 2010, where the Mavi Mawara was illegally assaulted, intercepted, and 10 activists were actually killed in the same effort. So this illegal siege of Gaza is by design. It is part of the occupying powers' intent to colonize the land of Palestine. And in doing so is effecting a genocide on the people of Palestine. And we need to be really clear that this siege of Gaza is by design to starve the people of Gaza, to annihilate the children of Gaza so that future generations are in jeopardy. And we have seen a systematic destruction of the healthcare system. We've seen a systematic destruction of the lives and livelihoods of people. And even trying to bring the story to the world has been deeply impacted by the over 200 journalists that have been killed thus far in reporting the truth.
Dr. Hendricks, when you, of course, mentioned the year 2006, it was a year before when Hamas won a democratically held elections. And, of course, it was then that Israel went ahead and enforced the siege on the Palestinian people of Gaza. When you look at the ICJ delivery last year, and I'm talking the one in July, when it, of course, said that Israel is committing apartheid and that its occupation is illegal, both in Gaza and the occupied West Bank. Then coming to this, what makes this mission lawful and necessary?
Well, there are key factors here. Number one, this blockade of Gaza is illegal, right? And therefore, any use of force by the occupying power to enforce aid getting to the shores of Gaza is unlawful. So breaching such a blockade as we are on the Global Summud Flotilla to deliver humanitarian aid is, number one, unlawful. To stop us is illegal, and actually beyond the level of illegal is immoral, because we are really at the level of a place where governments have failed, and it is up to the ordinary citizens of the globe to take action. And this is what we see. Ordinary people from around the world, humanitarians, organizers, clergy, healthcare workers, artists, etc., mobilizing together to get on board and to sail towards the shores of Gaza. We carry humanitarian aid. There are no weapons on board. We are in respect of international navigation law. There's no smuggling, there's no piracy, there's no armed activity. And we as volunteers, we are protected civilians, right? So the flotilla volunteers like myself as a boat crew member, under Article 4 of the 4th Geneva Convention, we are seen as civilians, not combatants. We are protected persons. And if we are intercepted by the occupying power, we are guaranteed humane treatment. And it prohibits any torture, any inhumane treatment or degrading treatment to inflict upon us.
Dr. Hendricks, one final question before we go to the break. The genocide in Gaza has probably gone from bad to worse. When I spoken to a lot of, whether it's political analysts or even journalists within Gaza, they have said August was probably the worst month since the genocide started in October 2023. Where are we now in terms of this very mission going and delivering the necessary aid? We see this Gaza Humanitarian Foundation, on one hand they're giving aid, and on the other they are murdering people at such a high rate. So what makes this so important in terms of where we are at this very moment?
You raise a really key issue here for us. And I really want to iterate that this genocide did not begin in 2023. Genocide never just happens, right? There are circumstances which are designed to build the climate in which a genocide can take place. And we see in the stages of genocide from, this narratives of us and them and the chosen people, and we start seeing the enactment of hatred. We see the language that is used in the dehumanization of people. We've witnessed in previous genocides, cockroaches, vermins, and very, very loudly in this genocide, referring to the Palestinian people as animals. And from there, it progresses into persecution, and we really are now at a point of extermination. So this famine, forced starvation by design, the annihilation through chemical, through warfare, through killing Palestinians, to holding Palestinians hostage, in that they're unable to leave, and they have no access to water, to food, to medicine. These are all parts of the infrastructure of what makes up a genocide. And so this particular initiative of the Global Summud Flotilla comes at a time where ordinary people are really challenging government's complicity. And I do want us to be very clear on this, that the ICJ initiative by South Africa is sterling. However, we do need to take deeper looks at ourselves introspectively in terms of South Africa's complicity around ongoing investment and trade, around coal, around diamonds, around what's happening with the IOF forces or members in South Africa. And so there is much work that we need to do as civilian actors as well as within government. And we, as ordinary people, need to pressure our governments to end the complicity, to pressure our employers within corporates to end their complicity with this genocide.
After the break, I continue my conversation with Dr. Fatima Hendricks. The Sumud Flotilla, an important mission, probably the most important mission that's going to be occurring this year. And there are 10 South Africans that are part of it. What a history for the country, but what a history or historic moment for the globe as a whole. My conversation continues after the break. Welcome back to News in Focus. I'm still in conversation with Dr. Fatima Hendricks. She is one out of the 10 South Africans that will be part of the Global Summud Flotilla, which heads this week into Gaza to get the necessary aid through as the genocide continues. Dr. Hendricks, shukran again for staying with us. When you sat down, of course, with your family, what went through your mind, the thoughts, the bravery for you to say, I'm joining this because if no one's going to do anything, I have to do it?
So thank you for that question. And I think we really do need to be very wary of savior narratives. There is accountability that individuals, that civil society, that governments need to enact in terms of their own moral and legal responsibilities to end this genocide. And as a person of faith, one of the key principles has to do with the preservation of life, which is key to my belief. And the second has to do with upholding of justice. So if we are guided by principles, and these principles are built on universal values across the Abrahamic faiths and the larger community of the world, of the global, of the world, I think the question arises around what accountability will I have to answer if I do not act? So more than a sense of saying, I need to go because I need to, save, it is really around moral accountability that each one of us needs to answer to around what we did when the genocide was being enacted upon the Palestinian people.
Dr. Hendricks, how are you preparing for this? I just got a statement now saying that due to unsafe conditions, we've conducted a sea trial and then returned to port to allow the storm to pass. So there's it's a long statement. I'm just taking that one, given that a lot of things could occur during this journey. This isn't a luxury boat cruise that you're going with, which is, of course, wind energy or electric energy. A flotilla is completely different. It is dependent on the weather and the seas of the Mediterranean. So how have you prepared for it? Because you are leaving South Africa, all the luxuries here, and going onto a boat which will have probably the barest of all minimums. So talk to us about that.
Okay, so I think spiritual preparation has been really key about being very clear on the intention and the enactment of that intention before even making the decision on getting the boat, or getting onto the boat, and participating in this larger movement. I think each one of us needs to have a deep introspection into our own complicity around what we're doing around efforts to end this genocide. And a big part of that has been my own personal introspection and my own personal reckoning and my own personal spiritual preparation. We had, on the day before I departed South Africa, the morning at 7 a.m., very close family and friends gathered together, and we recited for 2 hours before I departed to the airport, so that I was very clear, and we were very clear for the family that is being left behind in South Africa, and the friends that have to mobilize to assist on why we are doing this, and to ask for Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala's assistance, and to continue to pray for the people of Palestine, because the people of Palestine are the center here. We are merely people that have been brought together by Allah ta'ala's facilitation to be in these particular roles. But it is the Palestinian people who are at the center of this genocide, and we need to continue to center their experiences.
Dr. Hendricks, there's three parts to this. So you've got, of course, South Africa's ICJ case, which is a tick. From an economic and trade perspective, it probably gets across, given that the trading of coal and energy is still ongoing. But then another part that gets a tick is that of the social perspective, the humanitarians, the citizens who are saying, us as the 10 South Africans are joining this flotilla to make a difference. How does it all amalgamate, given that South Africa has been seen in the eyes of the world, this beacon of hope to stand against the injustice which is being perpetrated not only on the Palestinian people of Gaza, but the Palestinian people of the occupied West Bank, who themselves are going through a slow ethnic cleansing there?
There is a beautiful relationship between the Palestinian people and South Africans. And when you travel anywhere, I've been to Palestine and around the Middle East, the minute that you say that you're from South Africa, everybody recognizes the experience of South Africa during apartheid, the icons that have struggled and fought against apartheid, and the stand that people have taken, like Nelson Mandela and the broader movements in South Africa in the anti-apartheid struggle, to align and to be sure that the Palestinian cause is front and center and in tandem with the freedom struggle in South Africa. So that is very clear. However, we are really, in as much as we have the South African support, we really have to galvanize more. The beautiful people need to come together behind this Global Summud Flotilla. You need to get involved. You need to be able to attend the events, to engage in social media. If there's no events happening, stand on your street corner and support the Global Summud Flotilla. The reality is that the more eyes on us in this flotilla, the safer that we will be. The more eyes on us, the more witnesses that we have in terms of the illegality of the behavior of the occupying force as civilians try to sail and to open up a humanitarian sea corridor to reach the shores of Gaza, something that governments should be doing.
I want to talk of fears, Dr. Hendricks. What we see with Handala and Madeleine, and of course, granted on this occasion, or on those two occasions, both of them were just one ships, respectively. Israeli drones, as they were approaching the coast of Gaza, were circulating. Then, of course, both you and I have seen that, and billions around the world, the seizure of the passengers on board the flotillas were then taken by the Israeli occupation forces. This time, though, it's much different. There's more boats that are going to be heading into Gaza. But I'm sure both you and I know this is not going to stop the Israeli occupation forces from going ahead and either seizing the boats or trying to intimidate many of the passengers. Talk to us about how you've been preparing in terms of that, because it's something that I think everyone is taking into account, given who Israel is and the brutality of their actual force.
Look, all the volunteers are very clear on this. If the flotilla ship is seized and we are abducted by Israeli forces, we're very clear on the responsibilities of what needs to be enacted in terms of flag state obligations. So a vessel's flag state must act against this unlawful interception. And there is state responsibility that they have to enact against Israel. We also have an enactment of home state protection. And this is where we need South Africans to galvanize and to galvanize together so that when interception happens, when we are abducted, when we are kidnapped in international waters, that we put pressure on governments, because government has a state responsibility to safeguard our rights. Right? And so the other important part is witnessing and recording and documenting what is happening and amplifying that message. So I think these are really important as we build a case for international accountability at the ICJ and the ICC, because we need to take note of the the occupiers' obstruction of humanitarian aid by civilians. And this interception, right, of our vessels, right, will be seen and needs to be documented as a deliberate starvation policy, because we see the famine, the forced starvation inflicted on the Palestinian people in Gaza, and we need to have these clearly documented in terms of what is happening on these flotillas, what happened during the abductions, and what happened right through the entire process as we go through the motions of the Global Summud Flotilla. So we're well aware of the different scenarios that might occur. And it is up to the global community and a call to South Africans to, one, to educate yourself about the Global Summud Flotilla, and number two, to educate yourself about what you can personally and collectively do to support the efforts of the Global Summud Flotilla.
Dr. Hendricks, unfortunately, we have run out of time. Shukran so much for joining us. All the best. May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala make the trip safe for you, the other 9 South Africans, but also for the rest of the Handala or the rest of the crew that are going in this Global Summud Flotilla. And of course, you've got yourself a t-shirt there honoring the journalists. That's Mariam Abu Daka and Anas Al-Sharif right there. The honoring of them. They need to be honored. The rest of the Palestinian people of Gaza need to be honored. Dr. Hendricks, all the best. And we hope to speak to you when you come back, inshallah. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.
Wa alaikum salam wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Thank you.
That's Dr. Fatima Hendricks. She's a South African member of the Global Summud Flotilla. Up next, what's happening with NERSA and Eskom? Well, South Africans are going to be paying more for electricity. I'll be speaking to Professor Vali Padiachi after the break to break down what is actually going on. More pain for us as South Africans for a basic human right, which is power. Do stay tuned. We'll be back after this break.